From Daniel Ricciardo stepping in mid-season to swap places with the alphatauri driver, to Red Bull's cutthroat approach that leaves zero room for mistakes, here's the real reason Red Bull drops so many drivers. For one, Red Bull has a never-ending history of mid-season driver changes, and this time they did the same with Nick de Vries. Now,
Ricciardo's going to step in to fill in for the Dutchman.
After only 10 races, but the decision to kick out the former Formula E and F2 champion isn't even shocking, considering Red Bull loves to pull in plot twists with mid-season changes, and with the Honey Badger sticking around as the reserve driver in 2023, it was pretty obvious they were going to give him a seat soon enough. Here's the deal. The Red Bull car is very different from most of the other F1 cars on the track. It oversteers, and it's super snappy, but they're not going to change it because their golden boy Max Verstappen wants it that way. And what about the other drivers? Well, they come in and suffer because no one's going to tune it according to them. But the Honey Badger's the only one who likes an aggressive car, which is exactly why he was decent with Red Bull and made his way back even after the McLaren axe. But hiring and firing Nick early on proves that Red Bull's got some serious F1 problems to fix right now. You see, the team dropped or swapped F1 drivers across its teams 4 times in 7 years, with Nick being the latest victim of the inevitable mid-season changes. And I'm talking about the same F2 champion who was signed by Red Bull to partner up with Yuki Tsunoda at alphatauri to replace the Alpine-bound Pierre Gasly. And let's just say, Nick proved he deserved to be here. With his surprise point-scoring debut at the Italian Grand Prix in 2022, when he was called up to replace Alex Albon. That kind of performance was exactly what Helmut Marko wanted. So it didn't take long for him to make up his mind that the Formula E and F2 champion was the person to sign, even if it meant he had to let go people like his driver Mick Schumacher or any of Red Bull's own juniors. So, if Nick did a pretty great job with his F1 debut and throughout the 10 races, then why give up on him right now? Just think about it. Is Red Bull all about impulsive decisions, whether it's signing an F2 champion after a surprising F1 debut, or kicking him out to bring back the former Red Bull driver? I mean, they should have at least looked at a couple of performances right before they signed the driver. And even if they did, they should have stuck with it, especially after their long history that already puts their reputation in question. Instead, to drop him just a few months into the season is baffling. Although the team doesn't have anything to gain by stringing him along until the end of the season either,
if they were going to end up replacing him with Ricciardo anyway.
But playing around with Nick's career and opportunities like that isn't fair. What did Marko expect? He picked up a rookie after a single race. How was he ever going to match with the 2-time world champion? If you ask alphatauri's team boss, Franz Tost, he'll tell you that a driver needs multiple years to properly adjust to F1.
This decision about swapping Nick with Ricciardo
wasn't something he was okay with either. And if you wrap up the team's history, Red Bull hasn't really produced any driver worthy of a junior team seat, at least ever since Verstappen stepped into the picture. And all of this, topped with the lack of options Red Bull has, means that they've got a lot to sort out right now. But one thing's for sure, Gasly's the only one who managed to come out of it and still have a Formula One drive. Right after he replaced Daniil Kvyat in the middle of 2017, thanks to another round of mid-season changes, the French driver shocked everyone when he wrapped up the Bahrain Grand Prix with a 4th-place finish in 2018 for Toro Rosso.
And that kind of talent led him to replace Ricciardo,
who moved on to Renault after Verstappen stole the limelight at Red Bull. And by 2019, the young Frenchman was officially a Red Bull driver. But no one expected the dream to turn into a nightmare for Gasly. Marko didn't think twice before demoting Gasly back down to Toro Rosso. Sure, he's still stuck around at the rebranded alphatauri team for another 3 years, only to fight back to an emotional win in 2020, right before joining Alpine for 2023. That said, he made his way back even after the Red Bull axe, but he might be one of the only few ones to do it. Others felt Red Bull's ruthlessness even before he got to F1, and I'm talking about Alex Albon. As he made his way through the junior formulas, he was dropped from the program early on in his career and went on to race in Formula E with Dam. But here's the deal about the F1 silly season. It's pretty unpredictable. So, with an open space at Toro Rosso for 2019, Albon negotiated his way out of Formula E for his F1 debut, and from there, he made his way to the Red Bull seat the same year to replace Gasly right after the Hungarian Grand Prix. Fast forward to 2020, and Albon was under threat by another driver, racing to replace him, Sergio Perez. But after a year out, Albon's finally made his way into the Williams team and is shocking fans once again. But if you ask me, no one had it as bad as Kvyat. I mean, he had to deal with Red Bull's cutthroat approach thrice. Hired by Red Bull, right after a pretty impressive rookie season with Toro Rosso. Things started off pretty great, especially how he ended 2015 as Red Bull's top scorer. But fast forward to 2016, Kvyat's career took a turn for the worse when a home race in Russia
Had him crashing into Vettel twice in 2 corners, only to end up ruining Ricciardo's race.
and he was dropped at the next round in Spain, so Red Bull could spare a seat for its superstar-in-the-making Verstappen. That said, Kvyat's demotion, which came in just 4 races into the season, set a completely new tone for how Red Bull handled its youngsters. And from there, Kvyat tried to make his name at Toro Rosso, which had him losing his seat twice in a matter of weeks, first to Gasly and then to Brendan Hartley. But if there's one thing about Kvyat, it's that he doesn't know how to give up. So even after he was axed from Red Bull's driver program at the end of 2017, he made a comeback for a 3rd stint with team in 2019 again, right after Gasly's promotion to Red Bull. But again, right after 2 seasons, he was gone again after he lost out to Yuki for 2021. And if all that wasn't enough, there are enough drivers who've been through Red Bull's cutthroat approach for fans to question the team's seriousness. Why are they jeopardizing the futures of young, talented drivers who deserve to have enough time to adjust themselves to the F1 cars, and especially Verstappen as a teammate? And let's face it, none of that happens within a half season, so I'm not sure what Marco's expecting from all of them.
If anything, even Perez or Ricciardo aren't safe either.
You see, no one can escape Red Bull's cutthroat approach. That leaves 0 room for mistakes. And with how perfect Verstappen has been, after bagging 2 championship wins back-to-back, the pressure for his teammates to even match up with his competitive spirit is getting more difficult day by day. Not to mention, the Dutchman isn't the easiest teammate to deal with either. And even though Perez and Ricciardo prove their worth to the team, and they're the only ones right now who've even come close to Verstappen, it's pretty obvious that the team isn't going to let them go either.
But one mistake, and I wouldn't be surprised if they're out, especially Ricciardo.
His future at F1 isn't very predictable right now either, especially after the McLaren axe that left him with no competitive options for 2023. And if he can't make his comeback by 2024, there's no way he's going to stick around in F1 long enough. And right now, he's associated with a team that isn't ready to forgive any errors right now. With that said, with all the mid-season changes piling up for Red Bull, maybe the team needs to be a lot more careful with switching their drivers around before they run out of top drivers. I mean, how long is Verstappen going to stick around? So, there you have it. From Red Bull's cutthroat approach that leaves 0 room for mistakes,
to Daniel Ricciardo stepping in mid-season to swap places with the alphatauri driver.
That was the real reason Red Bull dropped so many drivers.